Welcome to the Tzurba Hilchot Shabbat Program with Rabbi Shalom Rosner. Tzurba is a revolutionary halacha sefer which guides you through over 300 topics in Jewish law in a unique signature style. In this weekly series specifically, Rabbi Shalom Rosner learns through the Tzurba Hilchot Shabbat volumes, helping us all master the Halachot of Shabbat in just 2 years. Tzurba volumes are available for purchase worldwide on Amazon. And to learn more about Tzurba, or for those in Eretz Yisrael looking to purchase volumes, please head over to tzurbaolami.com. For more information, see the description below. And now, Rabbi Shalom Rosner.
Okay, let's get into the next shiur. This shiur is sponsored by Greg and Rebecca Eliason in honor of the Tzurba Mirabbanan leadership and in memory of those who have fought and made the ultimate sacrifice, Al Kiddush Hashem, since October 7th. We thank them for the sponsorship. So we are up to shiur number 5 in volume number 19 as we continue with many halachas that have to do l'maisa with Hilchot Shabbos. We've spoken about borer and tochen and lush, and now we are into getting into. We spoke about food preparation last time. We spoke about soveya. We spoke about malicha, and now we're up to 2 shiurim regarding opening packages on Shabbos and containers and cans and bottles. Let's get into some of this discussion, and we're going to split the shiur into 2. Again, we're the 5th shiur here in the volume, and it starts on page 207, making and breaking vessels. As we continue here on a couple of shiurim relating to Hilchot Shabbos and opening packages. So we know there is a couple of malachas that are going to be relevant to these discussions. There's going to be Boneh, which is building. There's going to be soser, which is breaking or destroying. There's going to be maggid, which is the final hammer blow, finishing something. Right? That's how do you define that? That's an interesting question in Lumdus. Some of the Mefarshim wonder, why isn't every malacha also maggid? When I finish cooking something, I violated bishul, but that should be maggid. When I colored something, when I shechted something, I completed a final stage of a process. So that's a good question. It could be there are some achronim that say maggid is only when it doesn't violate any other malacha as part of its definition. That never can overlap. Okay, but either way, we'll get to some of these. So the Rambam tells us in Hilchot Shabbos in the 10th parak, in Parak Yud, source number 1, page 207. The Rambam defines for us Boneh. Boneh, the malacha of building. Ha-boneh kol shu chayiv. Ha-mashve penei karka babayis. What's even a tiny amount of boneh? You put a nail in a hole to close up a wall. You smooth out the floor in your house. Hamashve penei karka babayis kagon. It's a dirt floor. If I smooth it out outside in the field, that would be the malach of choresh. That's getting the field ready for plowing. But in the house, I'm not planting anything, so that's the malach of boneh. Shehishpil tel, o mila guma, I flattened a little hill, or I filled in a hole, okay, harezik boneh, v'chayev. So any little amount of boneh, building, there's no minimum shear, that's going to be chayev. And soser kol shu chayev. Vusha yistra manas livnos. Soser, if I destroy, that's going to be chayev d'oraisa, but this is one of those malachos that inherently are destructive, and therefore it's only going to be biblical chayev d'oraisa if I do it with a constructive purpose in mind. Al manas livnos. Just destroying something, breaking something for no reason is called mikalkel. That's a destructive act, which at most is asur d'Rabbanan, as we'll see. In some cases, it might even be mutter. Very lamaisa cases here. So hasoser kol shu chayvu sheyisra manas livnos. So if I break down a tent, hasoser al kavua, in order to rebuild, maybe in that spot, maybe elsewhere, that's going to be chayev v'hu is kavein l'takein. So this is the malacha of boneh and soser. The question is, what about boneh and soser when it comes to kalim? When it comes to utensils and vessels? So the Gemara says that there is at least one Tana. There's a discussion in the poskim in the Gemara about whether yesh binyan v'stira b'kelim or ein binyan v'stira b'kelim. It could still be, possibly, if you say ein binyan b'kelim, that the malach of boneh only applies to something that's attached to the ground, something that's structurally connected, large to the ground. So it could still be that's only asur midaraisa. Midrabanan, we still might say yesh binyan b'kelim, even if you say midaraisa, there is ein binyan b'kelim, and also it might be asur b'shem maggid, might be asur for another reason as well. But there is a Gemara there's a daya like that in the Gemara. The Gemara Shabbos Kuf Chaf Beis, and source number 2 tells us. The Gemara discusses talking about putting attaching a door to a hinge of a dresser. Tana Rabbanan, Deles shel Shida v'shel Teva v'shel Migdal. If you have a door of a dresser, notzlin of a machzirin, you can remove it, but you cannot reattach it. V'shel lul shel tarnagolim lo nodav lo machzirin, and of a chicken coop, you can't do anything with. You can't even take it off. Amar Rava, why would you be allowed to do anything? Why would you be allowed to take it off, put it back on? Amar Rava ksavar ein binyan v'kelim v'stira b'kelim. Mida araisa, it's mutter. Mida araisa, there's no binyan when it comes to kelim, when it comes to a dresser. But midrabanan, in certain cases, will asr it because you might come to gzeira shema yitka. You might fix it firmly in a way that would be asr daraisa. Maybe it will be nachma patish, and therefore they asr in certain cases. That's how Rashi reads the Gemara. Shabbos Kuf Chabeis. Rashi seems to say throughout Masechah Shabbos, there's no binyan mekalim. Period. We'll see Tosfot might allow some, meaning allow some into the definition of binyan mekalim, which makes it usher. But Rashi says gzeira shema yitka bechazaka besakin v'yasedos. You might do it strong with a knife or with pegs. V'havile gemar malacha v'chayev mishum makeh b'patish. So Rashi explains the Gemara that even if something is not usher da'oraisa because of boneh, it might be usher midrabanan because of you might come to the malacha of makeh b'patish. The Gemara in Beitza seems to say this is machloket Shammai and Beis Hillel, whether it's binyan v'stira b'kelim or not. The Gemara there says, the Mishnah there says in Beitza, Daf Chav Beis, Shlosha Dvarim, source number 4, on page 208. Shlosha Dvarim Rabbi Gamliel Machber K'dei Rabbi Shammai, ve'ein zok fenes hamenorah b'yantif. And one of the halachos that are up to machlokes in the Mishnah is whether you're allowed to put together a menorah made of parts on Yantif, some type of light. Can you put it together on Yantif? So the Rabbi Gamliel says you can't. So the Gemara asks by Kavit, well, what are you doing? Well, what are you doing by putting it together? Which malacha? Amr of Chinna Bar Bisna hacha b'menorah shel chulias askinan demechsi kabona. It looks like you're putting a menorah, some type of light, a chandelier, a candelabrum. You're putting it back together, so it looks like mechsi kabona. To Beis Shammai savri yesh binyan mekalim, u Beis Hillel savri ein binyan mekalim ve'ein stira b'kelim. It's machloka Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai says there is a malacha of binyan that's shayach to kelim, and Beis Hillel says no. There's no malacha that is shayach to kelim, boneh, and soser have to do with karka, with something that's mechuber karka, like a house. Putting a door, if you have a hole in your you have a doorway and the door came off its hinges. So putting that door back, that could be a shayla of boneh, vidaraisa, possibly. If you have a hole in your wall and you're going to put up a board and nail it in, that's going to be the malacha boneh. That's karka or mechubal karka. But if it's kalim, Beis Hillel says ein binyan ve'ein stira b'kalim. And Rashi explains there, Rashi in Beis Chabeis, ein toras binyan b'kalim ve'eino chayiv ela imkein asa b'malacha. Right, the only chiyuv for kalim is if you did a different malacha, not boneh, kagon, mimachik. We spoke about that last time, about smoothing, o machatich, cutting to a measured size, o oreg, o tofer, or weaving or sewing or attaching, shein avos malachos la'atzmam, that are avos malachos themselves. Aval chazaras chulios, just putting things together, pieces together, shein ba elamisham binyan, ein boneh ela bebatim va'ahalim. So machloket Shammai Beis Hillel, whether it's binyan v'stira b'kelim. By the way, I neglected to mention at the beginning of the Shiur. I should have that again. The Tzurba Mirabanan, all of these volumes are the Lax family edition of the Tzurba Mirabanan, and this volume is the Aaron family volume. We thank them also for all the learning that they have made possible. So again, we have an issue whether there is binyan v'stira b'kelim. This is obviously going to be the groundwork for what we need to do in terms of packages. But there is a Mishnah in Shabbos that seems to say there is no problem, and the Mishnah is not limited to Shitas Beis Hillel. Mishnah says in Shabbos, in the 22nd parak, Chaf Beis, Parak Beis Mishnah Gimel, very important Mishnah. This is one of the important sources in this whole sugya. Shover Adam Esachavis. A person is allowed to break a barrel. Le'ech le'mena grogros. You could destroy a barrel to get to the figs that are inside the barrel. As long as you're not making a kli, as long as you're not making a nice spout, as long as you're not making a hole that you're going to use this again and again. No, you destroy the barrel. No problem on Shabbos to do that. Why? Isn't that so, sir? Isn't that so, sir? Oh, maybe it ain't Stira b'kelim. But the Gemara doesn't link this. The Gemara doesn't link this to the Machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, and even according to Beis Shammai, even according to Beis Hillel, you might see there are certain Isurei D'Rabbanan sometimes. We said before, maybe Makkid B'Patish, but here it's mutter. It's mutter. Isn't Mekalkel destructive acts usually Asur D'Rabbanan? So, explain the Rishonim, Rashi, explained by the Ran there, but you have it here, summarized by Rav Kahati in the Mishnah, in source number 7, but it's based on the Ran. The Ran says, based on the Rashi there, Mekalkel L'tzorech Shabbos, mutter. Mekalkel is usually an Issa D'Rabbanan, but an Issa D'Rabbanan for an Issa D'Rabbanan of destructive act, in order for a Shabbos need to get to what's inside, mutter. Breaking open the barrel, you want to fix for Shabbos. That's mutter. That is the what the Kahati says, but it's again it's summarizing the Rashi and explained by the Ran. So this is the Mishnah. So it's mutter. Doesn't seem to be connected to Binyan or Stira b'kelim. If we look though in, I'm gonna have to put all this together. Right, the Gemara in Shabbos, creating, if I would do it to create an opening with a nice Pesach, that would be the malacha of Makkid B'Patish. Right, Malacha B'Patish of a hole that you put stuff in, you could take stuff out. If it only is one way, if only it could get stuff in, but it can't out, or the opposite, that's an Asur D'Rabbanan. But when the Mishnah says, if you have kavanah to make a hole that goes in and out, so that's going to be a hole, that could be a Makkid B'Patish Daraisa. If it's only one, then it's D'Rabbanan. That's the Gemara there in Shabbos Daf Kuf Mem Vav Amar Rabba, source number 8, Dvar Torah. Kol Pesach she'eino asi lahachlus or lahotzi eino Pesach. Any opening that you cannot go in both directions, in and out, that's not a halachic Pesach. V'Rabbananu degazer mishum lul tol tarnagolim. The Rabbanan said, no, well, we're going to D'Rabbanan because there is one type of tiny hole that's useful as is, even if nothing could be put in and put out, and that's an air hole in the lul shel tarnagolim. To avili yule avira ula afuke hava, an air hole. So you see, even a tiny hole can be significant. So therefore, even a smaller hole for other things also is Asur D'Rabbanan, but Daraisa, it would be, it would not be a chayev. So you read this Mishnah in Masechah Shabbos, it sounds like, okay, Ein Binyan B'Kelim, Mesir B'Kelim, according to Beis Hillel, and it's totally mutter. Mekalkel, for a Shabbos need, you could destroy a kli. The problem is there's a Mishnah in Eruvin, which seems to say that you cannot do that. And that's the basis for the Stira that needs to be answered by the Rishonim. The Mishnah in Shabbos seems to say that you could destroy a kli for a Shabbos need, mutter l'chadchila. While the Mishnah in Shabbos, Daf Lamed Dalet, source number 9, Nasnu b'migdal v'avada mafteach. What's the context there? We're talking about a case of Eruv Tchumen. We know for your Eruv to work, I put the food in a certain spot. I have to be able to get to that food. What if it's locked up in a box and I can't get to that food? The food for the Erev Tchumen is locked in a box. I can't get there. So if you can't get there, it's hu b'makam echad ve'eruv b'makam acher. So it's not going to work. So the Mishnah says, Nasu b'migdal v'avad ha'maftech hariza Erev. But if you lost the key, it's still a good Erev. It's still a good Erev. Ask the Gemara. But your Erev is in a different spot than you. You can't get it. V'yamai hu b'makam echad ve'eruv b'makam acher. Your Erev is in a different place. You can't get it. So 1 second. What do you can't get it? Destroy the box. You can destroy the box on Shabbos. Oh, the Gemara doesn't say that. So it sounds like from the Gemara that you can't destroy the box. And if you can't destroy the box, now we have a Stira. And the Gemara has to give a different answer to the question. But 1 second. Why is it that in the Mishnah Shabbos it seems to be that you could destroy a kli on Shabbos to get to what's inside, while the Mishnah in Eruvin you cannot destroy the kli in order to get to what's inside, right? So how do you answer that question? Tosfot has 3 answers, and each one of them is important to halacha l'maisa, what you paskin, and the other Rishonim, as we will see, also expand these answers. This is Tosfot's kasha. Tosfot's an Eruv Daf Lamed Dalet. There it is. V'im tomar, source number 10. V'hashtas al kadaitach dibimigdal eitz ayri davi kli. Right, we're talking about a kli here. V'od v'chulu v'im kain my parach ayri mutal shabbos a kli. V'lito masha b'tocho. What's the kasha? What's the problem? You could break the kli and take what's inside. Kid, it's not, as the Mishnah says, shover adam es achavis litom and agrogoris. You can break it to get to what's inside. V'tayim kadam Rabbi Samach mishum de'ein binyan v'stira b'kelim. So how do you answer the stira between Mishnah and Shabbos, Mishnah in Erevin? That's the kasha, right? Mishnah in Erevin, it's also to smash a kli, and Mishnah in Shabbos is mutter. 3 answers given by Tosfos, and again, each one of them is picked up by the other Rishonim. Answer number 1: V'yesh lomar demashmalei b'migdal gadol shach be'binyan v'stira. Maybe we're talking about a large kli. A small kli, you're right, there's no binyan v'stira b'kelim. The Mishnah in Shabbos, a barrel, that's a small kli, no problem. Erevin, we're talking about something bigger. Something bigger, so there is binyan v'stira by big kelim. Answer number 1. Answer number 2. Gotta remember, we have to remember this one. The ode de beklina mishach binyan v'stira. Even by a small regular kli, there is a problem of binyan v'stira. What about the Mishnah in Shabbos? V'had shari l'shaber hachavis hamuki la bebeitza b'mustaki. You know what you could break? You're only allowed to break a mustaki, but regular kelim you can't break. What's a mustaki? A mustaki is an inferior, low-level type of kli. Pirish chatichos hamedubokos yachad. It was a broken kli, and you took the shards and you glued it back together, and you could see it. You could probably see the lines and the cracks, and you break that again. That's not a chash of kli. When the Mishnah says, according to this answer of Tosfos, real kelim, you cannot break. You cannot break real kelim because there is binyan v'stira. Or at least there's makab patish. What are you allowed to break in Masechah Shabbos? That chavis, that song about a mustaki. Answer number 2. So answer number 1 of Tosfos, the problem is only by big kelim, not by small kelim. Second answer of Tosfos, no, the problem is even by small kelim, and the only thing that's mutter is mustaki, are inferior types of kelim. Answer number 3. Maybe the problem is only by stone kalim. That's where soser is a problem. Only stone kalim are a problem, and maybe that's what the Gemara Mishnah Erevin is talking about. But in Shabbos, that's talking about wooden, other types of kalim, and therefore it would be mutter. Fine. So these are the 3 answers given in the Rishonim. Who do we paskin like? But first of all, each explanation, as we said, is quoted by Rishonim. The Rosh quotes the second answer of Tosfos. The Rosh quotes the Mustaki, right? And that's the one quoted in Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch quotes that there is a problem of binyan v'stira b'kelim, and the only time it's mutter is if it's a Mustaki, a very inferior type of kli. Tosfos and the Rosh say that everybody even agrees to this. If you look in the source 11, where Beit Salam Gimel, for less leather balazar, doesn't Rabbi Lezer hold that it's mutter? Lechol chavis lo negrov Rashi yiskan lassos kli. Amar Rashi kitani yiba mustaki. Right. So the Gemara even quotes the concept of mustaki, but Tosfos quotes it lamaisa. Tosfos quoted lamaisa. What exactly is mustaki? I explained to him, and now let's see Rashi. Rashi says mustaki. Shabbos Beit Salam Gimel. I'm on page 212. Chavis shvura, a broken barrel. Shemedabkin shvareha bisraf shel eitz shekarin shaf. I glue with a type of sap. I glue the barrel back together. Ubalashon haravi koronoso mustiki. Umedabkin bo karos cheres hanishbarim. Broken pieces of shard I put back together. V'kivan deruahi, since it is very low level, inferior. Leka lemigzer bashlo yiskaven lasos kli. There's no gzera. We're not going to make a gzera that you don't come to make a kli. And Tosfos even quotes, because you have other cases where you see maybe there is binyan or stira b'kelim. Right? The Gemara says in Shabbos, Kuf Beis, you have it there in 13, the beginning of Parak Boneh. Ayol shufta b'kufina demara. If I put a little peg or a pin in the handle of a hoe in order to make it usable, Rav says that's Boneh. Shmuel says makba patish. So you see, by real kelim, there's a problem. So that's why Tosfos and the Rosh in this day hold regular kelim have a problem of binyan v'stira. All the ones that say not, and that Mishnah in Shabbos that you can break open the barrel, that's only by mustaki. Only by mustaki. Okay. Says the here you have here first quoted just a couple of other Rishonim that quote the other deos of Tosfos. Right, the third day of Tosfos. What was the third day of Tosfos? There's no problem unless they're made of stone. Unless they're made of stone, right? That's mentioned by Rashi. Also, Rashi quotes, as I said, in a few places. There's never any binyan v'stira b'kelim. Period. Not limited to mustaki. Rashi says Shabbos ayin daled. Right, that's in the. There's a Gemara says that you're going to be chayav 10 malachas if you make a barrel. So the Rishon have to go through. How do you get the 10 malachas? By making a barrel. So Rashi says, "Umishim boneh leka lechiyuvei lo b'chavis v'lo b'tana v'lo b'kaveres." There's never going to be a chiyuv for boneh for an oven or for a barrel. Ein binyan b'kelim. Rashi says there's none. So Rashi seems to hold like the third answer of Tosfos. There's never binyan v'stira b'kelim. The Ran holds like the first day of Tosfos. Yes by small, no. Yes by big, no by small. Right, that's the Ran. Shabbos Samachalov. V'lo sharinu l'shaber es migdal. V'haynu taima mishum dahasam b'migdal gadol askinan. It's a big migdal dahavi ka'oel v'shach binyan v'stira. But by a migdal katan, not a problem. So Lamaisa, we have the middle day of Tosfos, which we'll see is the most famous. The middle day of Tosfos is also the Rosh, and that is binyan v'stira applied to kalim. There's a problem. The only heter is mustaki, and we'll have to see how to translate that Lamaisa. Shitas, the third day of Tosfos, Rashi also only applies to stone kalim, but all other kalim there's no binyan v'stira by. First answer of Tosfos, the Ran, big and small. So is it big and small, stone versus others, or mustaki? What is the Shulchan Aruch paskin? Like the second day of Tosfos, as we said. Shulchan Aruch, Shin Yud Dalet Aleph, source number 16. Let's read it. Ein binyan v'stira b'kelim. There's no binyan v'stira, so you stop there. You're like, okay, great. There's no issue with opening any kind of package because ain't binyan v'stira b'kelim. Says the Shulchan Aruch. Wait. V'hani mili she'eno binyan mamish kigon chavis. When is there no binyan v'stira? Where it's not really building. You have a barrel. Shenishbara v'dibek shvareha. It broke and you put it back together. Bizefes with a type of pitch. You could break that already broken kli that you put back together. You can break again. As long as you don't have kavana to make a nice nekev, that would be tikkun mana. Maybe it would be makeh bepatish. But a regular, nice, complete kli, aser l'shabra afilu binyash dinosa kli. You can't break it. You can't break it even if it's in a way that you're not making a kli. Still, you can't break it. That's the Shulchan Aruch. I mean, the Shulchan Aruch is machmir. Shulchan is machmir, like the second day of Tosfos. Yesh binyan v'stira b'kelim, only mustaki is mutter. The Gra is more meko. The Mishnah Berurah quotes the Gra. V'yira Gra, source 17. Hiskim la poskim d'sfira lo dein stira b'kelim. Afil k'shos shvira b'kli shlema. There's no binyan v'stira, meaning like the third answer of Tosfos. Right, only applies to stone kalim, only the stone. Unless if you're making a kli, so if you're making a kli, even by breaking it, still it's going to be a problem because of makeh b'patish. Rav Avadia very uncharacteristically says we can be makel against the Shulchan Aruch. Why? Because the Rif and the Rambam are makel. What is the Shulchan Aruch doing? It usually goes 2 out of 3. Rav Avadia in the Yechavadas in source number 18. Nimsa. That's a whole tshuva about mustaki. Sherova poskim v'al tzva'a marifa Rambam sovrim shagam kli shalem mutter lishbar b'Shabbos. Also a complete kli. You have to break it. De'lita meno machal mashka. You can break it. You can break it just like the pashup shot of the Mishnah in Shabbos. Again, the Mishnah in Shabbos that says you can break the barrel. The Gemara doesn't say anything about mustaki. You don't get the impression that it's only talking about an inferior type of barrel. Tosfot, the Rav Avadia says no. It's not talking about. It's full barrel. And then he quotes, as he often does, and if the Shulchan Aruch would have seen all the other sources that I saw, he would have been makel also. Fine. The Aruch Shabbos writes that even if one is makel, like the Rashi and the third day of the Tosfos of the Gra, one has to be careful because there can be makeh b'patish involved. Maybe fine, not Boneh, but there could definitely be makeh b'patish involved in, let's say you're only going to break part of a kli. That's what he writes in source 19, so it's not so lamaisa easy lakula. V'yesh ladas sha'af hasovrim shein binyan v'stira b'kelim maskimim, even if you hold ein binyan v'stira They agree, Sha'amarkiv Kli al Yidei Tkiyas HaChalakim Zebazeh, putting a Kli together, Osha Ose Kli Mitchilasa, or making a Kli to begin with, start to finish, Chayev Chatas. That's still a Daraisa because of Makabeh Patish. Vanafkamina, and he quotes what the Nafkamina is between Binyan and Stira and these cases. But either way, this is all part one. This is background. We have all the three answers of Tosfos, and we have the Shulchan Aruch, the Baskin, like the middle answer. And now let us get into at least the first Lamaisa discussion, and that is cans. Cans, as we'll see, is probably the most chamor out of all of them. And next time we'll have to get into packages and tearing packages open and bottle caps. But let's just do cans now. Where did this come up? A couple of decades ago, sardines. I don't think sardines are as common or popular now, but sardines were very popular. We have a diary from my grandfather who came to Palestine in 1927. He was in YU Smicha, and then he took off to go for 6-7 months to Israel to get smicha from, I think, 4 smichas, Rav Yosef Chaim Zarnenfeld, Rav Kook, Rav Isser Zalman, and Rav Chalap. I think those are the 4. And we have a whole diary. So almost every 3 pages he says, 3 cans of sardines. And always sardines were very common. On the boat to get there, it took him a few weeks to get there. Sardines, so opening up a can of sardines on Shabbos. So what are you allowed to do? And maybe you don't want to do it before Shabbos. They didn't have refrigeration as much in those days. So this is a major machlokas. So let's say it's aser. You can't do it. Why is it aser? Fascinating. Machlokas achronim, which malacha is it? Says the Tehillah LeDavid, one of the achronim we have on Hilchot Shabbos. Tehillah LeDavid says that it is the malacha of soser. When you take a can opener or a knife and open up that kli you're destroying. Right now it's a good kli, and you're destroying it. Says the Tehillah LeDavid, source number 20. V'yatzalan midivrei Magen Avram, befidalach sardalium, right, sardines. Shem kalim gemurim. They are a perfect kli. They're holding the sardines inside. Aser lefaschem b'Shabbos. You can't open that on Shabbos. Af the name of Sheikar Asiyas Hafeidalahu Kadesha Yigmru Betocham Hasardalin. And even though the Iker, they make it in order to finish the getting it ready to eat. Mikal Makom Kivan Shem Kelim Gemurim Asla Pascha Mishum Soser de Oraisa. That's the malach of Soser de Oraisa. To open up a kli like that. Which would mean cans of tuna and pickles. The fact that everything is sealed shut. Pshita delomikri nishbura. It's not called broken. It's not called broken, sealed shut. V'davak shvareha bezefes. V'adiv tfei mi mechubar al yedei chashukim. Right? It is a perfect kli. That is the Tehillah LeDavid. It is a kli, and you are breaking it when you open it. Says the Chazon Ish, exactly the opposite. Exactly the opposite. Says the Chazon Ish in Aruch Siman Nun Aleph Os Yud Aleph, when you open the kli, you are being boneh. You're not being soser. You're creating, right now it's not usable. You have a can of oil or fish that are made from barzel. He used a knife, not just a can opener. I don't care about the kufsa. I'm going to throw it out. I'm going to throw out the can. I just want to get what's inside. Is that a malacha? I don't really care about. Is that psik reisha? Maybe you should aser because maybe you might have kavanah to make a pesach. People keep the can. You take off the cover and you can use it for soap, masperin to put nails in, and maybe some people don't even finish. So they'll leave it half open and they'll keep the rest of the fish inside the can, and then it's being used as a container. The afshar, and another third point, and we'll summarize these. The after b'tayta lazarka. Even if I don't have in mind to make a pesach, I don't have in mind to keep it, I'm going to throw it out right after I use it. Ein mitchashvin, doesn't matter. Lakula im kavanaso. You don't worry about his kavanah to throw it out. It doesn't matter. The lo matzinu heter shvira ela b'yesh lachavis pesach. Aval chalul mi bifnim v'sasa mikol tzad. When can you break the barrel? It's unbelievable. When does the Mishnah say you can break the barrel? If it has an opening, and now you're just breaking it. But if it doesn't have any opening at all, there's no way to use it. You are opening it. You are creating. You are creating. Kol she'osel pesach chashiv binyan. Wow. Miyumishim stiras klileka. You're not destroying anything. Kan shein kan soser klal. Shahapsicha tikun. Because you're opening it is fixing it. That's not destroying. Visasu mikol tzalav kliu. It's not a kli. It's totally closed. So it's not a kli right now. You are making it into a kli. Ukshosa lo pesach naaseh kli. Wow. So if you put the Chazon Ish together, so the Chazon Ish seems to say that you're, again, and the Tilo David, for different reasons, you cannot open cans on Shabbos. So the Chazon Ish says, maybe only if you have in mind to reuse them, right? Maybe even if not, maybe you might come to reuse them in the future, right? Other times, right? Or even if you have no kavana, but you've made a kli, and it doesn't matter what your kavan is. That's what he quotes here from on page 217. The Aruch Shabbos' summary of the Chazon Ish. The Piskei Teshuvos is not convinced that the Chazon Ish would say that all types of kalim are going to be usher, even if most people don't keep them. If most people don't keep them and you're not going to keep it, so then fine, maybe you could be lakula. If many people do keep it, that's the chumrah. If many people do keep it. Even if the Chazon Ish who forbade opening, right, only when many people keep them. That's what the Piskei Teshuvos says in source 22. V'kama mimachabrei zvanenu. Kasvu, they wrote, Shelo divrei HaChazon Ish, hu adin, benidon didon, yesh lahachmir. Hagam she'em mi sheyachzik arizos l'shimish chozer. What if nobody uses the cans? So some say, the Chazon Ish would say l'chumra, because what did he say? What was his lashon? We don't care about his kavana. The Efshar, he quotes the Chazon Ish that we just read. Da'af b'daitu l'zarka, ein mischashvim kavanaso. Don't worry about his kavana. The lo matzinu heter shvir el b'yesh l'chaviz pesach. You only find a heter if it has a pesach. If it doesn't, you're opening it. But says the Piskei Teshuvos, that's not so convincing. Shar machabrim, many were mafrich his words, and therefore it could be that if generally people don't keep it, so then it would be mutter. The simple solution that many that are aware of this problem do, and that is make a hole at the bottom of the can before you open it normally. Before you open the tuna can, make a hole at the bottom of it. So then you're not making a new kli. When you make that hole, you're not making anything new according to the Chazon Ish, and you're not destroying a good kli when you destroy it. Says the Shmir Shabbos. V'gam das osher manal im nikev es akufsa. And again, if you're doing it like a tuna can, you have to do it under the sink because it's going to spill out. The water is going to start coming out. And you should not wait till it drains out because that could be an issue of borer, as we discussed months ago. Im nikev es akufsa o kara es asakit. If you make a hole or rip, o es akufsa chavila bitzida o betachtisa over b'psichasa. If you make a hole somewhere where it's going to be totally ruined from when you open it, kach shelo hiya od ru'uya l'shimush b'tur kli leslan ba. That is not a problem. So even according to the Chumra Shitas, one can make the hole. What about there are some people out there that generally just use open cans normally? What do they have to rely on? What could they be somech on? And that's Rav Shlomo Zalman. Rav Shlomo Zalman in the Shmir Shabbos, in the footnotes of the Shmir Shabbos, says basically anything that people generally throw out, that's called mustaki. Wow. Mustaki, low level, putting the pieces back on. So in the olden days it was the opposite. In the olden days they didn't throw anything out, and if you had a broken cleat, they would glue it back together and use it again. But nowadays, if nobody generally open up a tuna can, people keep the tuna can, generally not. And you don't have if you're going to keep the tuna can, fine, that's an issue. But if you're not going to keep the tuna can, and most people don't keep the tuna can, so maybe or a can of soda. Shlomo Zalman in source 24. So he says, Shamati, Meir Shlomo Zalman Shamati, says Rav Neuwirth. Tam laheter, dimistavra, shestimas kufsas asardinim, bebeit charoshas. The closing the containers. Hulaman tuchalis kaim yamim rabim. They close it in that way so it can last a long time. V'gam la'afsheres havaras ha'ochem ha'cham lechal l'sheni. And it can allow for transport. That's why they close it this way. V'yafta idea stima iyefsher klal lahachnas olahotzi me'atochan shebekufsa. And even though there's no hole, Mikom makom mistaver dasogros Shabbos. What if you would make that container on Shabbos? That would be called Boneh, not soser. He says, if you would make that can on Shabbos. Says Rav Shlomo Zalman, mikivan sheragilam lizrok miyad es hakufsa la'ash. But everybody throws it out. Mistaver dechashiv kli re'ua ukachavish shal mustaki. So even according to the Shulchan Aruch, who's machmir, remember, Avadia says you can be makel against the Shulchan Aruch, but even according to the Shulchan Aruch, who is machmir, we can still say, no, the Shulchan Aruch is makel by mustaki. Anything you're going to throw out is called mustaki. And therefore it's mutter to open it and then throw it out. There's no binyan v'stira when it comes to mustaki. You want to be machmir, make the hole in the bottom of the can, fine. But even if not, even though it's not broken pieces put together, but still, they used to use that mustaki a couple of times. So here too, you look at the container as if it's omed to be opened. Open to be opened. If you are going to keep it, that's a problem. If Shlomo Zalman agrees to that. Shlomo Zalman agrees. If you're being Mishana, so then you're making a kli. You make it a kli. But if not, so then it is mutter. And that's what the Yalkut Yosef says also. Again, you want to open these before Shabbos, it's always better to open it before Shabbos because this is a chiddush. But this is what many rely on. And if you look also, there's a case on Shabbos Kuf Mem Vav that's quoted here in source 27, which we'll have to get to exactly, which talks also about untying and undoing certain types of wicker baskets. Tanya Chada Chotala Shal Gorgas Sh'Tmar Matir Umafkiya V'Chotech. We'll have to see Lamaisa where this comes up, but that's what Moshe talks about also in Igris Moshe Arachayim Chelik Aleph, source 28, where he talks about Nimsal Adina Sheilo Akans, V'chein Atzukar, V'chi Agavna Sharmani Ochlim, Shenimkarim B'Chavilos, Kruchim B'Sakshon Yar, and they're kept in packages. V'gam Yadua, and you know, Sha'achar Shalochim Yishama Ochlin, Zarkan Asamanei Medina. Everybody throws them out. Everybody you could just not worry about it. Not worry about Binyan, Stira. Everybody knows. Lamaisa, you want to be machmir to open it before Shabbos, great idea. But me'ikra din, it is mutter. Shmir Shabbos also, just the final source, recommends opening all cans of packages before Shabbos. And if not, so then if you're going to reuse it, then you can't open. Then there's a problem. If you're going to reuse it, you should destroy it so it's not reusable. But there is the heter of Shlomo Zalman to rely on. L'chadchila, says the Shmir Shabbos, is source 29. Last source for today. Ro ivenachon, it's appropriate. Liftoach mi ba'od yom es kol ha'mechila machasumim. All packages that are closed. Shepetchulasam yirtzel l'shamish Shabbos v'yadav. And by the way, this is not only food. Let's say you have a game. You want to rip the plastic off of a game, play a new game on Shabbos. Again, if you have pieces that are connected, they have to break off, that's a problem. That's a separate issue. But if you just want to open a package to something that you need, a package of diapers, you want to rip open without carrying any words, which we'll have to talk about. You want to open it, so better to open it before Shabbos. But if not, Bechlaze kupsos karton shibhem mashke kupsos shimurim, milk containers, kupsos sakios varizos karton asher gil mishtamish bohem shimish choser, things that you're going to reuse again. Then also the poskim Shabbos v'yantif. I feel even if you're not going to reuse it, but if most people are going to reuse it, so then that is a problem. But if generally you don't reuse them, says the Shmir Shabbos again on the top, you should try not to. But in the footnote, and then he quotes here, Ulam, this Rabbi Shalom Rosner, Yish Bekilim, Leftok Kufsos, Pachios, Mashke, Sakios, Arizos, Kela, opening all these types of things. Shein Regil Shamish Ben Shimish Choser. If people generally don't reuse them, and he opens them in a way that he has enough kavanah to reuse them, so that would be mutter. Definitely what to rely on in that case. So again, if somebody is opening it, it's not that, it's us or somebody opened the can for me, I'm not Yishmi Amal Lismoch. For those cases, again, l'chadachila not, but definitely Yishmi Amal Lismoch. Okay, this is the first of two shiurim that we'll have regarding opening packages for Shiur Hay in the Tzurba Hilchot. Again, we thank the sponsors, and again, today's shiur was sponsored by Greg and Rebecca Eliason in honor of the Tzurba Hilchot leadership, and in memory of those who have fought and made the ultimate sacrifice, Al Kiddush Hashem, since October 7th. Everybody have a wonderful day.